The wind ran low across the high desert that evening, carrying a dry chill and the faint scent of cedar smoke. Lone riders knew those signs. It meant someone out there had a campfire burning, and in a land this wide and quiet, nobody lit a fire without reason. Halle Branson felt that weight in his bones as he rode his bay horse along the ridge. He was a rancher by trade, a lonely man by circumstance, and ever since his wife passed, he had spoken more to cattle than people. Folks said Hale's voice had grown quiet like the land itself. But on that evening the land did not feel empty. It felt like it was watching him. His ranch sat a long ride behind him. A patch of grassland stretched against the foothills, barely holding on after a year of drought. Halle had left at sunrise looking for stray cattle that wandered off when a storm spooked them, but he had found no tracks worth following. Instead, he found signs he hadn't expected, signs of movement, signs of horses that didn't belong to any ranch. The hoof marks were neat, light, and fast. Apache riders, no doubt. He knew their tracks. Any man living this far west knew them. Still, something about these tracks was different. They were narrower, lighter, and the patterns in the sand suggested riders traveling in a formation he had never seen before. Halle studied them with a squint, brushing dust aside with the back of his glove. When he rose, his horse pinned its ears back, giving a soft warning. Halle turned just as a shadow crossed the ridge. He didn't hear a bowstring. He didn't hear a step. He only felt the sharp sting at the back of his head as everything around him spun. The sky went from blue to rust. The ground rushed up. His horse screamed once, then a voice in a language he didn't know echoed through the wind. Before he could lift a hand, darkness pulled him under. When he woke, he was tied at the wrists, his back against a pole wrapped with painted cloth and feathers. A fire crackled nearby, and shadows danced around him. Shapes moved in the glow, and as Halle blinked the blur from his eyes, he saw them clearly. They were Apache women? Not one or two, but an entire tribe of them gathered around the fire. Some wore leather dresses lined with turquoise beads. Some had faces painted with red clay. Their hair was braided long with wild sage weaved through. They looked nothing like the raid parties he had feared as a boy. These women stood tall and strong, eyes sharp with purpose. A woman stepped forward, and Halle knew instantly she was their leader. She carried herself with quiet command, her shoulders straight, her gaze fierce. Her name, spoken by the others in low respect, was Tala. She studied Halle without blinking, as if measuring his worth before she even asked a question. Another woman beside her, younger but no less confident, circled Halle like she was examining a stray horse. She called herself Mira, her tone firm with curiosity. Halle lifted his head, keeping his voice steady. He knew better than to show fear. "I'm a rancher," he said. "I wasn't looking to trespass. Just following tracks." Tala stepped closer. "You followed tracks that were not yours to follow." Her English was steady, shaped by years of learning from traders. She crossed her arms as if waiting for the truth he hadn't spoken yet. Nira touched Hale's rope with her fingertips, testing its tightness. "Why ride alone so far from your home?" she asked. "Why so much sadness in your eyes?" Halle didn't plan to answer that, but his throat tightened and the truth slipped out. A man can only talk to an empty house for so long. Some of the women exchanged glances, their expressions softening. They were warriors, yes, but they were also human, and loneliness was a language every soul understood. Still, capture was capture, and Halle wasn't naive. He knew he was at their mercy. He watched as the tribe moved around him, preparing food, sharpening tools, tending horses marked with symbols he had never seen before. This wasn't a raiding party. This was a settlement, a hidden one, a place few outsiders had ever witnessed. The night deepened, and the fire glowed bright. A circle formed, and the women began chanting, their voices rising in a rhythmic echo that stirred the air itself. Halle felt the vibration in his chest, a heartbeat that wasn't his own. Tala stood at the center of the circle, raising a carved staff to the sky. Nira joined her, both chanting words Halle didn't know, but somehow understood in spirit. They weren't calling for harm. They were calling for strength and truth. When the chant ended, Tala stepped to Halle again. "You rode near our land many times?" You watched from afar. But today our tribe watched you. We saw a man who does not seek conflict. A man burdened but not broken. Her words surprised him, but before he could respond, the women around her nodded. They weren't looking at him with anger now. They were studying him like someone they needed to understand. What do you want from me? Hale asked quietly. Nira tilted her head. To know why the land favors you. Hale frowned. The land doesn't favor me. I lost almost everything. But Tala shook her head. No, you survived what others could not. Storms, drought, loneliness. A man who survives so much carries spirit. Our tribe seeks such spirit. Hale had no answer. He felt the heat of the fire on his face, the weight of their eyes on him, and the unsettling truth that he did not understand why he was still alive. The ropes at his wrists were tight, but not cruel. They didn't treat him like a prisoner. Not exactly. More like a question waiting to be answered. Hours passed, and gradually the women settled for the night. Only a few remained near him, keeping watch. Nira sat closest, her posture relaxed but alert. Do not try to run, she said. The land belongs to us. It will not guide your feet. I wasn't planning on running, Hale replied, and he meant it. Something in this place held him still. The moon climbed higher, silvering the camp. Hale closed his eyes, listening to the quiet hum of the desert. But before he could drift to sleep, he heard a sudden shift in the camp, a rush of footsteps, hushed voices filled with urgency. Nira rose instantly. Tala appeared from the shadows, her face set with concern. Hale Branson, Tala said, her voice steady but edged with warning. Another rider followed your trail. Someone approaches our land who should not be here. She stepped closer, eyes fixed on his. And because of that rider, your future with our tribe may change before sunrise. The guards tightened their stance. Horses stirred. The fire snapped hard. Tala raised her hand, pointing toward the dark ridge beyond the camp. Hale, whoever that is. They are coming straight for you. And in the cold silence that followed, Hale felt the whole desert waiting to see what happened next. Hale felt the air shift as the women moved with quick purpose. The fire cast long streaks of gold across their faces, and even though their movements were calm, the way they exchanged glances told him this was no ordinary visitor. Nira gripped her spear tightly, stepping in front of Hale like a shield. Tala raised her chin, listening to something only she could sense. The desert had a sound to it. Most men missed it, but the Apache never did. Hale could tell by the way their eyes narrowed that whatever approached was close and coming fast. Hale strained against the rope at his wrists, not to escape, but because instinct pushed him to stand. Old ranch habits never die easy. When danger came near, he met it on his feet. But the rope held him firm. He steadied his breath as Tala came closer. You must stay silent, she said. If this rider looks for you, we must know why. Hale nodded. He didn't trust his voice. Not with so many questions in his head. Who would come looking for him in land no rancher dared cross? What sort of man would ride straight toward an Apache settlement? The sound reached them at last. Hoofbeats bounced softly off the ridge, growing louder. One rider, moving at a steady but determined pace. The women crouched near the edge of the camp, ready to vanish into the shadows if needed. Hale watched the silhouettes of their bodies blend with the rocks and brush. Silent as owls, Tala remained in the open, standing like a stone pillar with the wind in her hair. She looked strong enough to face the world alone. The rider paused at the ridge. His outline appeared against the moon, still and dark. Hale felt a jolt of something he couldn't name. Fear, curiosity, recognition, it all mixed. The rider turned his horse and began descending the slope toward the fire's faint glow. He tracks you by scent, Tala whispered, eyes narrowing. A skilled one. The women tightened their stance. Hale tried to speak calmly. If it's someone from town, he wouldn't dare ride this far. Nira shook her head. This is not a ranch hand. This is someone who knows the land. The rider came close enough that Hale could see the shape of his coat and the long rifle strapped across his back. Something about the way he sat on the horse made Hale uneasy. Confident, controlled, not a man wandering by chance, the camp waited. Even the fire seemed to still its crackles, but at the last moment, before the rider reached the outer circle, the women scattered into the darkness, leaving only Tala standing firm near Hale. She wanted the visitor to believe they were alone. She positioned herself between Hale and danger without hesitation. The rider slowed his hoof. Moonlight fell over his face. He was older, with deep lines at the edges of his mouth, a rough beard, and cold eyes that scanned the camp with sharp judgment. He didn't look surprised to find Tala, but he did pause when he saw Hale tied to the pole. "Well," the rider said, voice steady, "I figured they'd take you alive." Hale felt a chill crawl up his spine. He didn't recognize the man, but the man clearly recognized him. That alone tightened Hale's chest with worry. Tala did not move. "Why do you come?" The rider smirked faintly. "To collect what belongs to me." Hale stiffened. "I don't know you." "You don't," the man answered, "but your land knows me. And your cattle. And the debt you never thought you owed." Before Hale could speak, Tala stepped forward. "You enter our land with no respect, rider." The man shrugged. "Your land shifts like dust. One season it is yours, next it belongs to whoever claims it." "I don't fear the dust." That comment stirred something fierce in Tala's eyes, but she didn't react with anger. She reacted with silence, which was far worse. A quiet that warned of storms. The rider leaned slightly in his saddle. "Let the rancher loose. He comes with me." Tala shook her head. "No one commands our tribe?" "That's so," the man replied. "Then maybe you should tell your hidden women to step out of the dark." Emotion flickered behind the man. Nira had circled around, unseen until that moment. Her spear tip brushed the fabric of his coat. The man froze for a breath. Tala lifted a hand. Nira stepped back, but only slightly, ready to strike again if needed. "You talk too much," Tala said quietly. "Speak your purpose." The rider's eyes hardened. "Hale Branson has something I need. Something he doesn't even know he's holding. Something worth more than his ranch, more than his cattle." Hale stared in confusion. "I don't have anything of yours." "You have a map," the man said. "Or rather, your father did. You just never knew what it led to." The desert wind hissed through the brush. Hale's pulse hammered. "My father died 20 years ago," he said. "If he had a map, I never saw it?" The rider tilted his head. "That's the trouble with fathers. They don't always share the important things. But trust me, the map is yours now, and I need it." Tala looked from the rider to Hale. Something new stirred in her expression. Curiosity mixed with caution. She studied Hale as if seeing him differently. "You expect us to believe this story?" Nira said. The rider gave a small shrug. "Believe what you want? But the map exists, and I will find it." Nira raised her spear again, voice firm. "If you track secrets, track them outside our land." The man's eyes moved to Tala. "Do not stand between me and what I seek." Tala didn't blink. "Leave now." For a moment the ridge felt too small for all that anger. But the rider finally pulled his reins. The horse stepped back. The man gave Hale one more long look. "You can't stay with them," he said. "They'll use you?" "Everyone will. But you and I, rancher, we share the same blood in this hunt. Remember that." He turned his horse, riding into the darkness without another word. When he was gone, the women emerged from the shadows. Their steps were slow, guarded. The fire crackled again, as if relieved the threat had passed, but Hale knew better. Something in that exchange had changed everything. Tala knelt beside Hale, loosening the rope but not setting him free. "Tell me," she said, "did you know of this map?" Hale shook his head. "If my father kept one, it was buried with him." Tala narrowed her gaze. "Men do not cross our land for lies. That rider believes what he said." Nira stepped to Hale, eyes searching his. "Your father may have left you more than loneliness." Hale swallowed. The truth was he didn't know what his father had or hadn't done. The man wasn't one for sharing stories. He worked, rode, and lived with a silence Hale inherited. If there had been secrets, they stayed buried, Tala looked at him with a depth he couldn't read. This is no small matter. If someone hunts you, your arrival here is not chance. The land brought you for a reason. Our tribe will decide what that reason is. Hale felt the weight of those words. He wasn't sure whether they comforted or unsettled him. The night grew darker. The desert pulled tight around them. The women retied Hale's wrists, not harshly but firmly enough to keep him in place. They needed answers he didn't have. They needed truths he didn't know. All he had was a rising unease that whatever map the writer spoke of, someone would kill to find it. Tala turned away, signaling the women to spread out across the camp in a wider watch. The writer's arrival had changed their view of Hale. He wasn't simply a stranger anymore. He was a piece of a puzzle they did not trust. Nira returned to sit near him, keeping guard. Her voice softened. This map, whatever it is, brings danger. But danger has a way of revealing who a man truly is. Hale let out a slow breath. I'm not used to being the center of anyone's trouble. Nira nodded once. You will have to grow used to it. The wind picked up, cold and sharp. Somewhere far off, a coyote cried. The fire dimmed to embers. And in the silence that followed, Hale felt something settle around him. A pull? A shift in the land itself. The tribe didn't just capture him. They needed him, or feared what followed him. But the night was not done. The ground shivered ever so slightly. Horses at the edge of camp stamped nervously. Nira stood. Alert again, Hale lifted his head. Tala turned sharply from across the camp. Voice firm. Someone else is coming. And the tension tightened like a rope ready to snap. The warning moved across the camp like a cold wind. Tala's posture stiffened. Nira lifted her spear again, and the rest of the women rose from their posts with silent urgency. Hale felt the change in the ground too. A faint tremor. A rhythm. Not the steady beat of a single horse. This time it was more than one. Maybe two or three. And they weren't trying to hide their approach. Whoever these riders were, they came boldly. Nira stepped beside Hale with a hardened expression. The desert does not sleep tonight? Hale tried to steady his breathing. He had barely come to terms with one stranger claiming he sought a hidden map, and now another group approached the Apache women's land without fear. The whole thing felt like a storm building under his feet. He didn't know what any of these outsiders wanted from him. A lonely rancher with nothing but a fading patch of land and memories of a father who spoke more to the wind than his own son. Tala gestured for two women to keep watch near Hale while she went ahead toward the ridge. Nira followed her, steps swift and sure. Hale strained against his ties, leaning forward to hear anything he could. For a moment the ridge stayed quiet. The wind picked up dust, swirling it around the dying fire. Hale could hear the horses in the distance, then the faint murmur of voices, sharp, urgent. Tala's calm voice rose once, steady as stone. Then a louder voice answered, rougher, less patient. Hale tried to make out words through the echo of the canyon, but the voices were carried away before they reached him. The women guarding him held their spears tight, glancing toward the ridge as if expecting trouble to come rolling down at any second. Finally, 3 figures appeared at the edge of the bluff. Tala walked in front, unshaken. Nira followed closely. Behind them rode 2 men and a woman. Their faces shadowed, but their clothing and saddles unmistakably from the town miles south. The woman dismounted first, her boots kicking up sand. Hale recognized her. He hadn't spoken to her in a year, but he knew her posture anywhere. It was Loretta Harlow, daughter of a wealthy landowner. She had visited Hale's ranch once when she came looking for a missing calf that had wandered near his fence line. She had sharp green eyes and a habit of speaking like she expected people to listen. She had always been polite, but her confidence had teeth. Hale Branson, she called, voice carrying through the dry air. You're alive. Thank the Lord. He blinked in confusion. Loretta, what in the world are you doing out here? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to Tala with a tense smile that hid more fear than she meant to show. We came to warn him, she said. He's in danger. Nira scoffed. We know that already. One of the men behind Loretta stepped forward. He was older, with gray dust in his beard and restless eyes. Halle recognized him too. Cole Maddock, a ranch hand known for talking too much when whiskey loosened his tongue. Cole pointed toward Halle. There's a bounty on him. The camp stiffened. Tala's gaze sharpened like the edge of a blade. A bounty. Loretta nodded. Posted at the trading post? Put up early this morning. For what? Nira demanded. Cole wiped sweat from his brow. For carrying information that belongs to others. Halle groaned softly. That map again. Loretta faced him directly. Her voice softened but carried a weight that pressed into Hale's chest. Your father had more dealings than you knew. People want what he left behind. Dangerous people. Halle wanted to argue, to shake his head until all of this nonsense fell away. But the second rider's earlier words stuck in his mind. The map is yours now. He had dismissed it as a threat. But now 3 more people arrived, talking about danger, a bounty, and secrets he never knew. Tala circled the newcomers slowly. Why risk crossing our land to bring this warning? Loretta hesitated. Because the men hunting him won't stop. They plan to search his ranch next. Tear it apart if they must? Halle lowered his gaze. His ranch had already lost so much. If strangers tore through it looking for something that may not even exist, there wouldn't be anything left worth saving. Tla stopped in front of Loretta. You could have sent word through traders. Instead you ride here yourself. Loretta swallowed, glancing briefly at Halle. Because Halle is not the sort to run. He needed to hear this with his own ears. Nira crossed her arms. Or you needed something from him too. Loretta flinched slightly, unable to hide the truth from Nira's sharp gaze. But she didn't answer. Tala turned to Halle. Did you hide something from us? I swear I don't know anything, Halle replied. Whatever my father kept, he never shared it. Nira stepped closer. Even if you do not know, the danger still follows you. The tension thickened around them. The women, Loretta, Cole, and the third rider all seemed caught in the same web of secrets, each hiding something the others wanted. The fire cast shadows that danced across Hale's face, making him look smaller in the ropes than he felt inside. The truth was, he hated being helpless more than anything. Loretta approached him, her voice low. Halle, I think your father left a trail. Maybe not a map drawn on paper. Maybe clues. Marks on the land. Something he believed only you would understand. Halle stared back. He barely talked to me near the end. Loretta's eyes softened. People keep quiet for 2 reasons. To protect or to hide. Sometimes both. Tala glanced at Cole. Why come with her? Cole shifted uneasily. Because she asked? And because I heard men in town talking? Not good men. The kind who take what they want. And the third man? Tala asked. The third rider dismounted then. He removed his hat, revealing a calm but weathered face. His eyes were dark and thoughtful, watching everything but saying nothing. Loretta introduced him. This is Reed. He knows trails better than any scout. Reed bowed his head respectfully. We followed signs of other riders. More are coming. That sent another wave of unease crashing through the camp. Tala looked toward the open desert. How many? Reed hesitated. Too many for comfort. Nira gripped her spear. So this rancher brings armies behind him. Halle felt shame twist inside him. I didn't ask for any of this. Tala faced him directly. Yet it comes. The wind picked up, swirling sand and dry leaves. The horses near the edge of camp snorted nervously again. Reed observed them with a practiced eye. They smell trouble. Loretta turned to Tala. We didn't come here to fight. We came so Halle wouldn't walk into his death unaware. Tala's voice held iron. Your warning changes nothing. He remains with us until truth is known. Loretta's jaw tightened. If men come after him, they'll come here. That is our choice, Tala answered. The tension between the 2 women crackled like lightning trapped in dry brush. Nira stepped between them, sensing the edge they both stood on, then Reed's voice cut through. If the bounty hunters find this camp, none of us will be safe. Silence fell. Tala turned to Hale with eyes that glowed like embers. The danger that follows you grows. We must understand why. Your father's trail may reach deeper than you think? Hale lifted his head, feeling a weight in his chest he couldn't explain. I told you everything I know. Tala shook her head. But you have not told us everything you feel. He blinked. Feel, you fear the land, she said. Yet the land guided you here. You fear your father's secrets, yet you carry his silence like a cloak. Hale swallowed. I don't fear the land. Nira stepped closer. The land chose you? That is why riders follow. That is why danger hunts you. And that is why our tribe cannot ignore you. The air felt heavy with deeper meaning. Hale didn't understand it, but the women believed it firmly. Loretta clenched her fists. We need to decide what to do next. It is not for you to decide, Tala answered firmly. This land is ours. Reed looked toward the ridge again. The riders draw closer. We do not have much time. Tala gave a slow nod, then looked at her tribe. Prepare the camp. Strengthen the watch. No one moves without my word. The women obeyed instantly. Scattering into formation, Loretta stepped close to Hale. I didn't want to drag you deeper into this. But you deserve to know the truth. Whatever your father held on to, it didn't die with him. Hale's voice shook, not with fear, but with something heavier. I never knew him as well as I thought. She placed a hand near his arm but didn't touch him. Then it's time you learn what he left behind. Before Hale could answer, Nira called out sharply, drawing everyone's attention. Something moved beyond the ridge. A flicker of firelight reflecting on metal, Reed's face darkened. They're closer than I thought. Tala gripped her staff, voice steady but strong. Everyone prepare. This night is not done testing us. Hale's pulse hammered. Ropes held his wrists, but it felt like the world itself. Pulled him forward into a storm he wasn't ready to face. The riders were coming, and the night around the Apache. Women's tribe braced for the next blow. The ridge glowed. Faintly with approaching torchlight, just enough to throw thin shadows across the desert floor. Everyone in the camp felt the shift. Even the horses grew tense, shaking their manes and stamping as if the land itself whispered danger through their hooves. Hale braced against the pole, heart pounding hard enough to hurt. He wasn't afraid for himself as much as for the tribe around him, the ones who had shown him more watchful care than many townsfolk ever had. He didn't want trouble brought to their doorstep, but it was already too late for wanting. Tla moved like a flame in the dim light, guiding her women into a quiet formation. They weren't preparing for a battle they couldn't win. They were preparing for a truth that would demand strength. Nira positioned herself closest to Hale, her spear angled in a warning stance. Eyes narrowed toward the ridge. Reed moved beside Tala, speaking low. I counted at least 8 riders braced together. They're not moving timidly. They have purpose. Tala nodded once. Purpose does not make them welcome. Loretta's breath came unevenly as she watched the flickering lights. She stepped closer to Hale, lowering her voice. I tried to stop them before they got too close. I thought we rode faster. I was wrong. Hale studied her face in the darkness. She didn't look like the confident rancher's daughter he remembered. She looked frightened, torn, and desperate to protect something she didn't fully understand. Loretta, he whispered, you shouldn't have come. These riders aren't after you. She shook her head. I couldn't leave you to face this alone. Nira heard the last word and glanced at Loretta, her eyes sharp with a question Hale couldn't read. But the moment passed as the torchlight grew brighter on the ridge. Then Reed stiffened. They split into 2 groups. Tala raised her staff. Everyone stay low. The fire dimmed as Nira kicked sand over part of it, leaving only a dull glow to keep them hidden. The women crouched between rocks, behind horses, and along the brush where shadows swallowed them whole. Loretta joined them, pulling a revolver from her belt, though her hands trembled slightly. Hale clenched his jaw hard. Every instinct in him screamed to stand, to face whoever came, to stop running from a threat he didn't understand. But the rope at his wrist kept him rooted, powerless. He had never hated silence as much as he hated it in that moment. The torchlight finally spilled down the ridge, revealing 2 riders in the lead. Their horses moved with confidence, kicking dust with each step. Behind them followed 6 more, all carrying weapons. And they weren't hiding who they were. Halle recognized the closest one instantly. It was the first rider from earlier, the man with the cold eyes and rough beard. The one who spoke of a map and debts Halle didn't remember owing. He dismounted slowly, boots thudding against the ground with a purpose that sent unease through the camp. He surveyed the shadows, knowing he wasn't alone even if he couldn't see them. "I know you're watching," he called, voice calm but dangerous. "And I know you have the rancher." Nira's grip tightened around her spear. Tala stepped forward from the shadows, revealing herself under the pale moonlight. "You come with numbers, yet you speak of justice." The rider smirked. "Not justice? Just unfinished business." Tala remained steady. "The land does not belong to you. Nor does the man." The rider turned sharply to Halle. "He belongs to whatever truth he carries." Hale's voice cut through the tension. "I don't know what truth you're talking about." "Oh, you do," the rider answered. "You just haven't accepted it." Nira stepped beside Tala. "Say what you want and leave." The man's eyes darkened. "We want the map." Halle exhaled sharply. "There is no map." The rider took a slow breath. "Your father left something before he died. A message. A promise. And more than one man believes he left it for you." Loretta stepped from behind a rock. "If Hale's father left something, why chase it now? Why hunt him?" The man looked at her with annoyance. "Because other parties are searching too. And if I don't find it first, they will." Reed glared. "And you brought riders across this land for greed." The rider shrugged. "A man must go where the truth leads." Tala's voice dropped low. "This truth brings harm?" The rider lifted his torch. "Only if the rancher keeps refusing to cooperate." Halle shook his head in disbelief. "I can't give you what doesn't exist." The rider stepped closer to him. "Then why do men kill for it?" A murmur of unease swept through the camp. Nira stepped protectively in front of Halle. "Stay back." The rider raised a brow. "The tribe protects a man they don't know. Why?" Tala's voice carried strength. "Because we do not abandon those the land sends." The man gave a cold smile. "Then you have adopted a burden far heavier than you realize." His words rang through the still air. Then another torch flickered on the ridge behind him. Another rider appeared. Then another. And another. Reinforcements, late stragglers. Hale's heart dropped as he counted nearly 12 men in total. Reed muttered under his breath. "This is no simple bounty party. This is a hunt." Loretta swallowed hard. "They won't walk away empty-handed." Tala held up her hand. "We do not bow to fear." But Halle could feel the tension spiraling towards something that could break. And he didn't want to be the cause of bloodshed on land that wasn't his. The lead rider stepped forward again. "Bronson, you walk with us now." "There's no other choice." Halle grit his teeth. "You'll have to fight through more than me to make that happen." The rider scoffed. "You can't even lift your hands." Hale's jaw tightened. "But people here can." Nira stood taller. "We protect our own." The rider tilted his head. "He is not your own." "Spirit claims who it claims," Tala said. Her voice carried something ancient in it, something the rider couldn't understand. But he didn't need to understand it to feel threatened by it. He lifted his hand in a signal. The riders behind him tightened formation. The Apache women braced. Spears raised, bows drawn. Loretta cocked her revolver with a shaky breath. Reed readied his rifle, eyes locked on the nearest threat. The desert seemed to hold its breath. Halle finally found his voice through the dryness in his throat. "Stop this, all of you." The rider ignored him. "Bring him forward." Tala stepped between Halle and the threat. "No," the man's expression hardened. "Then we take him by force." Nira shouted something in her language, and the women shifted formation instantly. Halle saw movement at the edges of the camp as more of Tala's tribe emerged from hiding places he hadn't noticed. They weren't many, but they were fierce, the rider sneered. Think numbers will save you. Tala answered without fear. Number does not decide victory. Spirit does. The first arrow flew unexpectedly from behind Hale, whistling through the air and striking the dirt inches from the lead rider's boot. It was a warning, not an attack. A line drawn in the sand, but the rider took it as a challenge. He raised his hand again, signaling his men to prepare. Hale shouted. No, I'll go with you. Every head turned toward him. Tala's eyes widened with shock. You speak without understanding. Hale forced himself to meet her gaze. If I don't, they'll attack. I won't let your tribe suffer because of me. Nira stepped forward, gripping his arm even though he was still tied. Your life is not theirs to claim. Hale shook his head. If I give myself up, maybe they'll stop? Loretta stepped close, desperation in her tone. You'll be killed. The lead rider smirked. No, not yet, Reed muttered. That's not comforting. Tala stepped so close Hale could see the reflection of the firelight in her eyes. You do not walk alone. Not anymore. Her words filled him with something he couldn't describe. Something warm and frightening. At the same time, the rider pointed his gun toward Hale. Bring him. Tala didn't move. Nira didn't step aside. Loretta raised her revolver. Reed lifted his rifle. The Apache women stood tall. The riders tightened. Their circle Dot and Hale Branson realized every soul in that desert was seconds away from a war they didn't want but might not. Escape. The ridge above them glowed brighter as more torches appeared and the night swelled with the kind of tension that breaks just before the world changes. The standoff stretched tight across the desert air, so tense it felt like even the stars stopped moving. Torches flickered against the ridge, lighting the faces of the riders who came hunting for Hale with greedy eyes and restless hands. On the other side, Tala's tribe stood firm, their formation steady, their bodies angled like trees braced in a storm. Hale had never felt so torn. He wanted to shield them all, wanted to walk forward and end the threat before blood hit the dirt. But he felt the rope around his wrists and the weight of every gaze watching him. The lead rider stepped forward, gun raised with full intent. Last chance, Branson. You walk with us. Hale swallowed hard. You don't need them involved. I'll go. No, Nira said, her voice sharp. You do not sacrifice yourself for men who lie. Loretta stepped to Hale's side, finally dropping the fear in her posture. You heard her? We stand together. Reed lifted his rifle higher. You want him, you pass through all of us. Tala stood in front of Hale, her staff grounded firmly. No one takes what the land has chosen. Her stance was so strong, so certain, that the ground under her feet seemed to echo her will. Hale felt something rise inside him, something steadier than fear. The lead rider lifted his torch again to signal the others, but before the signal came down, the earth itself saved them. A rumbling choked the silence. A tremor ran across the ridge. Every horse on both sides reared, whinnying, stumbling as rocks rolled free from higher ground. The torches shook in their hands. Pebbles skittered across the sand. Even Hale felt the pole behind him shudder like something under the earth had cracked. The lead rider staggered. What is that? Reed shouted. Shift of the ridge. The mountain wind burst downward, kicking dust into a thick cloud that blinded the riders. Tala moved instantly. Cover your faces. The women crouched low, shielding their eyes while sand spiraled in tight, furious swirls. The riders tried to stay upright, but the ground tilted just enough to send two of them tumbling from their horses. One screamed as he hit the ground, his rifle skidding out of reach. The lead rider cursed, stumbling backward. Fall back. The others began pulling their horses away, unable to hold formation in the rolling earth. The ridge crumbled further, sending rocks spilling across the slope. One torch dropped and went out in the dirt. The wind howled, kicking the desert into a haze of sand and shadows. Tala raised her voice. This is not by our hand. The land does not want you here. Even the riders felt the warning in her tone. Another tremor cracked beneath them. smaller but enough to shake confidence. The lead rider stared at Hale through dust and confusion. Something in his eyes shifted, a fear that did not belong to any man but came from forces he could not control. "This isn't finished," he barked as he mounted his horse. Tale answered firmly. "It is finished for tonight, go." The riders didn't need more persuasion. Whether they believed the land had turned against them or they simply feared being buried under shifting stone, they pulled away fast, retreating toward the ridge in a ragged line. Torches vanished one by one until only darkness remained. The trembling settled. The wind softened. The desert grew still. As if satisfied, Hale let out a long breath he didn't know he was holding. Nira rushed to him first, cutting the rope at his wrists. "You stand now?" His arms felt heavy as they dropped free. He rubbed the raw marks around his wrists and looked around at the tribe that had risked everything for a man they barely knew. Loretta and Reed approached too, both shaken but relieved. Tal faced Hale with a quiet intensity. "The land spoke tonight. It chose its path." Hale's voice came low but steady. "It saved us." "No," Tala said. "It saved you, and all who stood with you." He didn't know how to answer that. He looked toward the dark ridge where the riders had vanished. "They'll come back?" "Yes," Tala said. "But now we know why they chase shadows. They do not have truth, only greed." Loretta moved closer. "Hale, we need to talk about your father." He nodded weakly. "I think it's time." The tribe returned to the fire, rebuilding it slowly until warm light filled the camp again. Hale sat near it with Tala, Nira, Loretta, and Reed forming a quiet circle around him. The remaining women kept watch, though their stances were calmer now. Loretta rested her hands on her knees. "Your father left the town years before he died. Nobody knew where he rode every morning. People made guesses. Some said he looked for gold. Some said he hid something dangerous. But truth is, he followed old trails connected to the Apache. Trails only a few knew." Nira nodded. "Trails of respect, not greed?" Reed leaned forward. "Your father was trusted by some of the tribes because he protected sacred landmarks. He didn't take anything. He guarded places others wanted to steal." Hale stared at the fire, struggling to absorb it. "He never told me." Tala placed a hand lightly on his arm. "Some truths are too heavy for children. He shielded you." Hale felt his eyes sting. "He carried that alone. And now you carry what he protected," Tala said. "Not a map. A responsibility." Hale shook his head slowly. "But those riders think I have something valuable." Reed chuckled dryly. "Greedy men think everything they don't understand is valuable. But what they want isn't gold or treasure. It's land. Land your father helped protect." Loretta leaned toward him. "And now they think you hold the key to claiming it?" Hale lifted his chin. "I don't know," Tala said, "but they believe you do." "That is enough," Nira added softly, "but you are not alone." The fire crackled brighter. Hale let the warmth settle over him. For the first time since he'd woken in their camp, he felt something like belonging. Something like purpose. He stood. "Come, you must see something." The women guided Hale, Loretta, and Reed to the far edge of their settlement where smooth stones formed a natural ridge. Tala pointed toward the horizon. A faint line of glowing silver ran along the desert floor. "That is the land your father protected," Tala said. "A place of old marks and history. It connects our tribe and others. It is bigger than gold. Bigger than ownership." Hale stared in awe. He knew this. "Yes," Tala said. "And now you do." Hale turned to her. "But what does it mean for me?" Tala smiled gently, something rare and warm. "It means you decide your path. You can return to your ranch. You can rebuild. You can carry your father's honor. Or you can walk a new trail with those who stand with you." Nira stepped to his other side. "Wherever danger follows, spirit follows too. You have strength you do not see yet." Loretta looked between them and then at Hale, her voice softer. "Whatever you choose, I'll help." Reed nodded in agreement. Same here. Hale felt something settle in his chest, no longer heavy but steady. I won't run any more. If my father protected this land, then I'll honor him by doing the same. Tala nodded with deep approval. Then our tribe stands with you. The women around them murmured agreement, a sound mixed with pride and relief. The night no longer felt threatening. It felt alive with possibility. As dawn slowly spread across the sky, painting the horizon in rose and gold. Hale stood with Tala and Nira overlooking the desert his father had once walked. Loretta and Reed rested by the fire, finally calm. The tribe began preparing morning tasks. Their movements peaceful now. Hale breathed deeply, feeling the weight of fear fall away and the weight of purpose take its place. He wasn't alone. He wasn't lost. He wasn't the lonely rancher he had been when he rode into the valley. Nir touched his arm lightly. You have a home here if you choose it, Tala added gently. And you have a place beside us? Hale looked at both women, at the tribe, at the land itself. In his heart, something warm and steady rose like morning light. I would be honored, he said. The desert wind carried the words softly across the valley, and the Apache women embraced their new path with him. Together they would guard the land, rebuild their futures, and face whatever came next as one. And for the first time in a long time, Hale Branson felt like the world finally made sense. A rancher found by a tribe strengthened by a rancher, a land protected by the bonds they built together, a true beginning wrapped in a peaceful sunrise.